A California landlord had their house trashed by a non-paying tenant and was able to get an eviction order against them, but a judge threw out that order of eviction due to the eviction moratorium. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today, and once again, it's coming out of the state of California. Now, as I've pointed out, and I shouldn't have to mention this again, but I will, California is one of the most anti-landlord places in the entire country. And so they have tons of laws, tons of rules, and tons of restrictions that hurt landlords in every possible way when they're trying to do business. And this really affects small landlords the most because they don't have a ton of staff or lawyers that can help them with the compliance for all the different rules and regulations. Okay, so they also don't have huge emergency reserves that can cover them if their tenants aren't paying rent for months or years on end. They also can't afford to go through an extremely long and expensive legal process of trying to get a bad tenant removed. But, you know, in the case in this story is quite interesting because this landlord actually was able to get an order of eviction against this tenant who trashed her property, but the eviction order was thrown out. And it was thrown out because of the eviction moratorium going on there. Okay, so this is a ridiculous situation. This is the sort of thing that I've been talking about for a long time. And this is the reason that, you know, I wouldn't even invest in California. It just isn't worth it to me to have to deal with these sort of issues as a small landlord. So, you know, it's awful. And I keep bringing these stories up because this is the kind of things that are, you know, still happening to landlords in places like California where they have all these rules, where they have all these regulations and laws that basically make a tenant have more property rights than the person who actually owns the property. Now, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think of this sort of situation where, you know, the landlord already has an eviction order. They have a tenant in their property who's a nuisance, who's doing damage, etc., and then they come back and they throw that eviction order out. Do you think that is fair? I mean, you would think that there would have been protections in place for landlords during the eviction moratorium if you have a tenant who's tearing a property up and you need to get them out of there. But apparently in this situation, that is not what occurred, okay? And so this landlord just got completely screwed over. And, you know, I've read too many stories like this, and it doesn't surprise me that this kind of story is coming out of California. So this article is coming from CBSNews.com, and it says, Sun Valley landlord laments eviction moratorium as nightmare tenant destroys property. Whew, let's see what this one says. Flora Alarcon's tenant doesn't pay rent and trashes her property in Sun Valley, but due to the COVID-19 eviction moratorium, she's left with nothing to do but wait. The California COVID-19 Rent Relief Program was created with the intention of protecting tenants from losing their places of living during the coronavirus pandemic, allowing applicants to receive money in order to pay rent and utilities. Eviction protection was also instituted as a part of the program, something that Alarcon's tenant is taking advantage of, claiming to have applied for the program back in October. However, she still hasn't seen any of the money, meaning 8 months of rent-free living. So yeah, one of the rules that they put in place is if a tenant applies for rental assistance, then they are protected under the eviction protections in the state of California. Okay, so even if the person doesn't actually qualify for rental assistance, they can't be evicted. This is a nightmare for landlords, especially considering just how long it is taking the state of California to actually process these applications. And, you know, what are we supposed to do? We're just supposed to take the loss. That's what they expect. You take the loss. You're a rich landlord. You've got tons of money. Well, in the case of this landlord here, we're talking about a small landlord with just a few properties. So that is not the case. And this could easily bankrupt a small landlord who doesn't have enough emergency reserves to cover themselves. Alarcon said that while she understands the effort to protect people during the pandemic, she feels that there's nothing protecting her as the landlord, as she watches her property fall to shambles in front of her eyes. It just breaks my heart, she said, fighting back tears of frustration on Monday while speaking with CBS reporters. It breaks my heart to see all my hard work being taken advantage of. Her property sports 3 homes, the main family home in the front with a pair of rental properties in the back. She says that the middle property houses the problem tenant. Unauthorized additions, piles of trash, spray paint on the walls, problematic wiring, and a shed completely destroyed by fire are just some of the noticeable problems surrounding the property. Wow. I mean, give me a break, okay? So from what it sounds like, the main house is where she actually lives, while the 2 rental properties are right behind it. And now she's got, sheds thrown up. She's got fires on her property, all sorts of issues caused by this bad tenant. And she can't get rid of them. Can't get rid of them. That is ridiculous, okay? And especially when it comes to a small multifamily property with the owners living on the same property with the tenants. This is a nightmare, okay? Now, I did it, okay? I lived in one of the units of my fourplex back, when I was first getting started real estate investing, and I had fears that, I was going to have a problem tenant who was right next door to me, but fortunately I got lucky and, I didn't have to deal with any of those problems, right? But in this case, this landlord is having to deal with these issues, okay? And not only are they trashing her property, but they're not paying, and they don't have to pay because the state of California says that they are protected. Oh, wow. What a ridiculous story. As she noticed the growing amount of issues, she filed for eviction with a local judge, which she received, only to have it overturned by another judge after the notice was served, thanks in large part to the extension of the eviction moratorium through June 30th. I went back to court today and it was thrown out, she said, noting how she feels powerless in this situation, despite reassurance that the program was designed to help both renters and owners. A lot of owners have really been hit hard financially, said Dan Eukelson, the executive director of the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. It's time for the government to stop babysitting renters. People need to pay their rent or they need to move out. Amen, okay? This guy, Dan, he knows what he's talking about. And as for them saying, oh, well, it's going to end on June 30th, who knows if that's true or not, okay? They've already extended it time and time again, and it's very, very likely that they're going to extend it once more because in their minds, they want to implement these kind of programs, and they are, anti-landlord. They are very much socialist, and they make the tenant dependent upon the government by saying, oh, well, we're going to keep paying your rent for you. So, they're creating this society of people who are 100% dependent on the government. And then meanwhile, they're painting the landlords as these evil, wealthy people because they actually are working within the capitalist system. So that's very much socialism, what they're pushing, and I'm 100% opposed to it, as always. But let me keep going here. He detailed that while most of the applicants for the rent relief program need it and use it accordingly, he's seen a large portion of tenants working the system and creating problems for their landlords. As the days pass by, she's left hoping that her property can stay somewhat salvageable and that there is no additional extension to the program after June. Don't pay rent, but keep my house up in good condition. That's all I want, she concluded. No one answered when CBS reporters attempted to speak with the tenant at their home. Yeah, she is so broken after everything that's happened to her that now she just wants them to not trash her property anymore. Yeah, she's like, if you can't pay rent, so be it, but just don't trash the place, because she knows she could be out hundreds of thousands of dollars if they do. And, I feel for her, okay? I really do feel for her. And I truly doubt she's going to ever see a single penny from this rental assistance program that they have set up. And like I said, it's very likely that they could extend the eviction protections again. And what will she do then? She's just going to keep eating that loss? Just keep eating it? And, I want these things to end. I want all of these eviction moratoriums that are still in place, and there's not that many. There's not that many throughout the entire country, but I want them to end, those that are in place. And they should be found as unconstitutional because they are, okay? It's obvious from a plain reading of the Constitution that this is an unlawful taking of private property for public use without just compensation. Okay, and they can't say the rental assistance is just compensation when they automatically put up there that not everyone qualifies for rental assistance. Okay, so yeah, horrible story of a hard up landlord sitting in California right now, and all I can say is hang in there. Maybe you can get that tenant out of there and get your property back. Okay.